Good evening. Welcome to Beyond the Gatekeepers. I am Bishop Vanessa M. I'm your host and moderator for this evening, and we're very, very happy to have you here with us from Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, all of the social media platforms, Twitter, where we can be found. We are, I say Twitter, it's X now. Sorry. We are very happy to have you here with us. We ask that you like and share on all those platforms. You can find us on the Beyond the Gatekeepers page. You can find us on Bishop Flunder's page as well on Facebook. And so we want you to go and make sure that you share. I see people already prepared to be in the room tonight for this very, very wonderful conversation that we are about to have. I'm excited about our guests. But before we do that, you know that we like to give shout outs. And so we want you to tell us where you're from. Want us to tell us, where are you from? Where are you watching from? Shout it out. And so let's go. Let's see who we have here. Before I do that, let me bring on Bishop Flunder. Bishop Flunder is our co-host and moderates as well. We are excited about the work that she has been doing in community for over 40 years, and excited about who she is to us. She is our presiding bishop for the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries, and she is the senior pastor of City of Refuge United Church of Christ in Oakland, California. Bishop Flunder.
How you doing? Bishop Pearson would say, how you doing?
Yes, he would. He certainly would. Exactly. He would
good evening. Good evening, everyone. Yes. In this rather intense and complicated at times time that we are in. I'm very excited about the fact that we've had the courage to ford the stream around many issues over the years and months that we have worked together as gatekeepers. But we are in an interesting time now when we're putting our hands on some things that we have not really put our hands on in the true sense of the word. And tonight is one of those conversations to talk about the realities that have to do with the history and the current issues around race, around gender, and what does all of that mean? How is all of that showing up and what it is that we are doing? So we're going to have an incredible time. Get your cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And a chicken leg. And let's get together and spend some time and use the opportunity to say something on whatever network and way that you are with us tonight. If you have opinions and ideas, let's chat with one another. All right. Blessings to everyone.
Thank you, Bishop. I want to shout out the people that are on before we get into it. So on IG, we have Roz White watching from the DC, Maryland area. We have Elder Boaz, who is watching from Philadelphia. So glad about that. And then I see on Facebook, Sherry Dampier from Brooklyn, New York. Welcome, Sherry. Albert, she's on YouTube. So is Maria Harris from Denver, Colorado. Albert Reed is here from Colleen, Texas, watching from Facebook. Reginald Nichols is watching from Stockton, California. We say good evening to you all. Sean Jenkins is watching from the Metro Atlanta area. We say good evening. Rebecca Brown from Arizona. Good evening to you. James Thomas Pierman from Kentucky. And we say good evening, watching from California. Siegfried Benton, Pastor Siegfried is watching from Temple Hills, Maryland. Welcome. Dinah Chapman, good evening. Dublin, California is in the house. Darlene Connell is here with us. We say good evening to you, Queens, New York. Sherry James from CSL Reno. Thank you for watching on YouTube. Linda Lillian Cruz DeBrille is watching from Highland Park, New Jersey on Facebook. Deacon Valerie Moore is watching on Facebook as well from the Queens, New York, Atlanta area. Antiwan Johnson, Stockton, California. Colette Walker, good old faithful. God bless you. We missed you too. St. Louis, Missouri is here. Arletta Williams Bass, thank you for being here. Oakland, California. And, James Thomas Pierman said he's watching from Kentucky. So welcome. We're glad that you're here on tonight. And there's several things that we could be talking about, but we got this one thing that's on our hearts and minds. That is this upcoming election and how we maneuver, how we move through. Let me just introduce our guest, Reverend Dr. David Alexander. He's the spiritual director at Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta. And so glad that he's here. He's been a guest several times before. But on tonight, we have him here specifically because he has the book, the workbook, Recovery from the Lie of Whiteness, Becoming Aware. Let me say that title again. Recovery from the Lie, he's holding it up, of Whiteness, Becoming Aware. It's a 12-step workbook. And the editor is Andrea. And I am just excited about this work. And I believe that we can gel this work together and make sense of our political climate right now, make sense of the deep-rooted consciousness of white supremacy, and how right now our political climate is rife with coded rhetoric and policies that continue to uphold these systems of oppression. So, Reverend Dr. David Alexander, welcome to you. Will you say hello to everyone?
Thank you so much. Thank you. Good evening, Bishop Brown and Bishop Flunder. It's so good to be with you both. I missed you both so much not being in Vegas. I mean, my heart literally hurt not being there. But
we missed you too.
Yeah, so I'm glad to be here tonight. Glad to be in the service one more time with y'all this evening.
Yeah, I love it.
Have this important conversation. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Now, you wrote this book, or you are involved with the writing with other writers, I believe, with regards to the book. And it's a 12-step model. So when I think about the 12-step model, I think about also Bishop's 12 steps of radical inclusion. So this is a model where we can better equip ourselves for the ongoing struggle against white supremacy. Tell me why this book is important right now in the climate that we're in.
Well, all the things you mentioned, the ways in which the structures of white supremacy have their grip in the body politic and in the policies that are being passed across the nation. I often refer to it as the stew that we've all been baked in. Because one of the questions I got, we did this back in 2020 during the pandemic, because you may remember at that time, particularly at New Thought churches, communities that I come from, there had been an increase in the conversation and in the awareness, and it was a good thing, about race relations and, the murders and with the police and the different things that were happening, the various cases. And so ministers and communities were talking more about it, which of course was a good thing. But then it was the old kind of, routine of the shock from white communities and people of color kind of going, welcome. You're a little bit late, but welcome to the game. We're glad you're here, but could you tone down the shock a little bit? Because this has been happening for a while. We've been shocked and outraged for a few hundred years. So if we can get beyond your shock and your tears, then maybe we could get to work. And so it's kind of in that atmosphere. I didn't want to keep talking about it. I wanted to do something. I wanted to, produce something, particularly because I was in Atlanta and I was new here, and, in the cradle of the civil rights movement and in a very diverse spiritual community. And I felt to some degree the gloves had come off from my preaching in my previous post, and I had some freedom that I felt maybe I didn't have before. That was mostly subconscious, but it was there. So anyway, so I had said one day in a sermon, I said, we need to start treating whiteness like the dis-ease of consciousness that it is. And I said, we know how to work with the dis-ease of consciousness. And in New Thought, we teach that all the time, how to find the error thinking that is working in our mind and how to sort of weed it out and replace it with something better. And that is the science of mind that we teach. And so we do that with our health and wellness, with thoughts of doubt and lack and limitation, and not enoughness, and relationships and finances, and in every area of life. So why can't we do that on the collective level with race relations? Because this idea that one group is superior to another is an error thought. It's a false thought that has gotten rooted in the collective consciousness. And so I began to preach about it in that way, and then that just grew and grew and grew. And I kept saying it. I was probably said maybe 3 weeks in a row. I said, we need to treat it kind of like 12 steps. And I was just kind of working with that idea. You kind of work and massage an idea through a few sermons. And I got a call from somebody who was watching. This was a pandemic when we were getting all kinds of new people watching, from Andrea Travers. That's Reverend Andrea Travers from California. She used to be my board president in Oregon, and she was watching in California. And she's very well versed in 12 steps. She's written about it from a broad ecumenical spiritual perspective, the wisdom of the 12 traditions and world religions, and all of these things. And she said, I keep hearing you say this, and I think I can help you. Which, to a minister's ears, that's like the best thing. I just want to do a quick little plug right now. If you have a gift and you hear something that your minister is saying that they want to do, or project or something, and you've got that gift, please speak up. That is like, just honey on the, dripping down when somebody calls you and says, I think I can help. And so that's what she did. She called me, and because I knew I couldn't do it alone. And 12 steps is not, my first spiritual language. And so she was a great help in that regard. And then she's a white woman, and I'm white. And so we said, we can't do this alone. So we gathered the prayer practitioners in our community, many of them who are African-American. And we said, anybody who wants to be involved in this, would you come together and help us? We're going to form a group. And so there's a whole group of contributors and who wrote from their experiences. And Andrea guided us every week, and they met for every week for, I think, over a year, and finally produced this workbook. We wanted to produce something that would take the language of the 12 steps, rewrite it to address racism and what we call the lie of whiteness, kind of getting inspired that from the work of James Baldwin, and then actually not just talk about it, but provide a workbook where you can work those steps, and you can begin to, as I think I first learned the phrase from you, Bishop Flunder, decolonize your mind around the constructs of whiteness. And one of the first things that people, because I'm in a very diverse community, that people would ask me, certainly my African-American congregants, well, is this for us? And I would say, yeah, it's for everybody, because we all, regardless of our melanin or cultural background, we all are infected in that. We've all been baked in that stew, and it's in our culture, and it's in this collective Western consciousness. And so we all have some level to decolonize. I think white people have more work to do because we're the direct beneficiaries of the systems of privilege. But that doesn't mean, we can look at from Clarence Thomas to Barack Obama, we can see the way in which the constructs of whiteness affect, how African Americans show up in collective culture to get, from what's it, Candace, what's her name, Owens or whatever, I mean, there's a lot of them we could talk about,
a lot of people we could talk about. Absolutely.
So yeah, so it's, it's really for everybody. So that's kind of the inspiration of where it came from, and then the group that came together, and why we did it.
Thank you for that. While we're talking, I want to make sure that I shout out Wayne Baldwin from Calgary, Minister David from New Jersey, New York area, Bishop Diana Williams from Maryland, Keith Darnell Wilson from Seattle, Chuck Rhodes from South Carolina. Thank you for being here, all of you on tonight. So but I'm going to let Bishop Flunder weigh in, but before, well, Bishop Flunder, do you have something to say right now at this point? Okay, so go ahead, Bishop. Go. I want to talk about these 12 steps, because right now what we're seeing in the political climate, we're seeing this actually play out. Right, we're seeing the recovery for the wildlife. We're seeing the lie of whiteness play out And right now, I don't see recovery from it. Right.
Right.
Right. So we started off with well, it didn't start off with, but just as recently as a couple of weeks ago, we have this presidential debate that took place, and we hear, the former president of the United States denigrating Haitians by saying vile things about them.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because, as you say, it's so baked in to every part of legislation, every part of the judicial system, every part of how we even live and move on this earth, people got wind of what he was saying, and now these schools are facing bomb threats, and people are being threatened in that city based off of a lie.
Right. Right.
Tell us about these 12 steps, because we got to be able to recover. So tell us one by one, or as many, the ones that you think, I mean, they all are important, but let's lift up some of them tonight.
Well, let's, we're beginning right there, the first step, right?
Good.
I have it in front of me, So in AA, we would say we admit that we are powerless over our addictions and that our lives have become unmanageable. In this workbook, we've changed that to say we've admitted that we are powerless over white systemic conditioning, and our racist thoughts and actions have perpetuated centuries of oppression over people of color.
Yeah.
And so that admitting of that, now that's the hardest step, just like it is in traditional AA, right? The hardest step is that first meeting, admitting that we've got a problem, because there are plenty of people that look like me, some who have been in my congregations over the years, who have said, yeah, no, I don't, I didn't have anything to do with how I was born. I didn't do this. My ancestors were good people or whatever. I'm a good person. I have black friends, or, whatever they say. And even if I, whatever, I can't help the way I was born. So that first step of admitting that there is a thought construct of othering that says one group is superior, and that the idea of whiteness, and this is the other thing, and I know this, I'll get to your question specifically in a moment, but the construct of whiteness itself, we're not talking about white skin. We're not saying white people are bad. We're not saying that, it's the construct, the social construct, because we got to be very clear in the beginning about what we're identifying. The lie is this social construct that was created, as James Baldwin points out, you had to earn the right to get white when you came here. There were groups who weren't white when whiteness was invented, right? And I go through that a little bit in this workbook, and also on a blog on our website, livewhiteness.com. We talk about that in the 1680, around that time, 1675, in the original colonies, they were trying to assign property rights and marriage rights and other rights to specific people, and the laws were written in Virginia, Georgia, other places, and they were identifying people to all Christian men. Well, that didn't quite work out too well for them, because then they found there was some people of color that came over from somewhere else, and they were colonizing them anyway into Christianity. So then they had all these folks that were Christian that they didn't really want those rights to go to. So then they said, all European men. Well, there were some black folks from London that came on over and were living, and they said, oh, well, wait, hang on. Well, we didn't mean you. And they had to keep trying to find a way to define who they meant the rights to be for, who the laws were to protect, and who they weren't to protect. And so it wasn't until they came up with white, and they said, oh, there it is. That's the one. That'll work. That one will stick. And so this construct is completely false. And then Irish people came over. They weren't white. They were Irish, and they were, subjugated and oppressed and whatnot. And, other folk that happened to other folks as well. Italians had to earn the right to kind of sort of to be white. And pretty soon, as James Baldwin then later says, everybody was giving up their identity in order to become white because the privilege was, so great. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about this construct that is a complete fabrication, a lie. And the danger of that, as we're seeing now in our politics, is that when you are in that in group, your willingness to protect that over all else becomes the superior driving force in the consciousness. And so the former president said what he said. He was asked about it. He was challenged on it. He didn't backtrack on it. We all saw that. And then the vice president or the vice presidential candidate, his running mate, doubled down on it and said, if I've got to make stuff up, if I have to lie, if I have to make stories up in order to get the attention that we want to get where we want to get it, then that's his direct quote, then that's what I'm going to do. That's whiteness. Right? If I have to make it up so that I get the power where I want it to be, and if there's another group of people that are the subject of that are the object of that are the othered part of that are now threatened or in danger, or somehow stuff is happening that wouldn't otherwise be happening to them, well, that's just collateral damage to the lie that I got to tell so that I can get what I want.
That's good.
As plain as day.
Plain as day. Plain as day.
So that is, we've got a problem.
We got a big problem.
Step one, we have got a problem, and it is out of control. It is out of control. That lie is hurting Haitians. It's that lie is keeping AR-15s and gun laws the way that they are, such that school shootings and mass shootings are happening. That lie is behind the anti-trans legislation, the bathroom bills. I mean, all the stuff that lie is driving all of that. And they're running scared because that demographic is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. You can't win a general election on white men and white women alone.
Thank you for that. Bishop Flunder?
So this brings back a whole lot of things for me. First of all, when we authored Where the Edge Gathers, one of the things that was a real part of that was what we called the 12 Steps of Radical Inclusivity. And I think what it's married to, in terms of what it is that we are talking about, Dr. David, is that there is a sickness, like the 12 steps that people look to when they were trying to get off of substances that were killing them. What were the steps that they needed to take to be made whole, to get beyond being a prisoner of a substance? They took a 12-step program. Mm-hmm. When we started looking at the 12 steps of radical inclusivity, of course, it had to do with the inclusion of the LGBTQI community and the inclusion of women and the inclusion of multiple faiths, being able to find a common denominator. But the walls were horrendous to get over because people were very stuck in religion. And people can get mighty stuck into religion. But I love this concept, this idea of 12 steps that is seeking to speak to what is happening and has happened historically as it relates to race and racism. I think it is powerful for people of faith to come together who can only really come together if they've sort of passed through a water that will look beyond race and pass through a water that will look beyond religion and pass through a water that will look beyond power over dynamics. And I think it is really time to talk about race, because race is what in so many ways created the other things. Because it was this ongoing feeling in just about every group of people that my people, whoever my people are special. Now, this is not unique to what happens, as you've said, in the United States. It's what's happening. It's what gives Putin the wherewithal to think he can take Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's what when I was in Africa, Bishop Vanessa, what the Tutsis thought about the Hutus.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody was Black. But one group of people thought themselves to be greater than the other group of people, which is a race issue. Just so happened that one tribe was shorter than the other one. That's about the only thing. Other than that, they were cousins. Mm-hmm. They weren't any different in color than me and Bishop Vanessa are right now. But whatever was the whatever, let's put it that way, that made one group of them think that they were greater than the other. It is a sickness that permeates the planet. Right. What is this power over dynamic? What does it mean? What does it mean between Hamas and Israel?
Yes.
What does that mean?
What does it mean?
You're less than me. And I have now moved myself to believe that God, that my understanding of the divine has now enabled me.
Yes.
If you come to the fight with a slingshot and I come with a gun, then it was the will of God that I have a power over dynamic where you are. And so, yes, it is timely because it is really what the problem is. And we are calling it out. We want racism to get called out on the street corner with water hoses.
Come on.
And we have to bring an end to this. And I am so glad that you have put both your heart, your time, your education, and the deep love that you have shown to all of us who are listening to you tonight. You have been our brother since we've known you.
Yes.
You have been our brother for real. I want you all to hear this that are listening to us tonight.
She's frozen, I think. But we know what she's saying. She'll get unfrozen. Maybe she'll come in and go back out. Pastor Sue. Yep, that's exactly what she did. But what she's saying is correct. This is what we're watching right before our very eyes. Yeah. We are seeing it happen, and we got to do something, right? And so we got to speak truth to power. I'm very happy for all of the people who are standing up that are even not Haitian Americans. Right, or that are not Haitian at all, that are standing up and speaking. Bishop Flunder, back to you.
Oh, I don't know where I left off, but you and I just, if you didn't hear this part, Reverend Dr. David is our brother, and that's real, and he has been our brother for many, many years. Before any of our steps got written down, let's put it that way. He's been our brother. We lived the steps. We went to the same places together. And he found a way to interact with us, primarily African people of African descent, clapping on the 2 and the 4, Baptist-costal, Methodist-Baptist-costal.
Yes.
And new thought when we went and spent time with him until we created a stew, a soup, you know what I'm trying to say, Bishop Vanessa, authentic relationship. I don't have to try to be with David.
Yes.
He doesn't have to try to be with me.
Yep.
If we can do that with each other, it speaks to what the possibilities are.
Yes.
Otherwise, it'll just be another time when a group of people will feel that to be made strong, they have to diminish somebody else. They have to have a power over dynamic.
I was going to say, it's this power over dynamic.
That's it. I'm going to mute myself.
Yeah, well, and I'm going to come to you, Dr. David, but I want to say that it is this power over dynamic. Again, we are watching it play out in our current events. Lebanon was bombed to pieces. All of these people are dead now. Israel bombed them. Why? You know what I'm saying? Like, and I don't. We
cell phones and walkie-talkies.
Yeah, cell phones, walkie-talkies, and so many people were killed. Though,
yeah.
I just we have to do something to stop this. And when we talk about this, a lot of it is, as it relates to Israel, is in our scriptures. So people are taking the scripture, everywhere your feet shall tread, and all of these different things as a superiority thing to do stuff to other people that really should not be done. And so anyway, Dr. David, you are leading us down the road that we need to go. And in terms of the 12 steps, let's go to the next step, because we've identified it.
Yeah.
We see what it is. We
got a problem. We got a problem, and our life and our world has become unmanageable, right?
Yes.
People are dying. There's all of this stuff is happening. It's out of control. And so that's the first step. It's just coming to that awareness. And as we said, we still have a challenge with, a lot of people still can't get there yet. But that's sort of the beauty of the 12 steps, is that, I can't make somebody, get into the work. They have to want it. You can take somebody to a meeting, but they can turn around and walk right out. And so, there is that sense of personal responsibility in 12 steps, which I think is valuable to this work. But we still have to do some work in terms of getting people to see. But once they begin to see, once we open our eyes and see, we say, oh yeah, we've got a problem. Step 2 says, I came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me or us to sanity. So we have rewritten that to say, came to believe that knowledge and understanding can restore our part in creating a new social order of diversity and inclusion. And so that is that idea. Okay, we've got a problem, but there is a knowledge and a wisdom and a power and a spirit that can restore us to sanity, and we can see that diversity is the natural order of things. Look at the garden, look at the grocery store, look at the, diversity is the natural order of things. Creation is naturally diverse. There is, and you want to go to Israel and Hamas and that whole situation, and I hesitate to do this in the presence of such scholars, but I'll do it anyway. But, in the scripture, and it says, and Moses is leading them, or the tribe gets to the edge of the promised land, right? And he sends the spies out to look, right? And they go and they come back and they report, and the place is occupied, right? That's always given me great pause. Just that part right there. This is the place that Spirit has brought them, and it's occupied.
It's occupied also by their family.
By their family, who
they're not strangers.
Right, who they immediately begin to demonize and call them giants, and
that's right,
all kinds of names, right? So they demonize them. So then we have that power over dynamic and all of that. And so they take from that, oh, we got to go in and conquer. We got to go in and, edge them out and get our space. And every time I've used that scripture, I've just paused with my community and said, let's just contemplate the idea that the promised land is already occupied by other people. Maybe the lesson that was there was that indeed this is the promised land, and you're going to have to learn how to live and work with some other people who are already there. Like you're going to have to, it doesn't mean that it's still not your place to find your destiny and do your thing, but you're going to have to get along with some other folks. You're not going to get led to this wide open space, this manifest destiny illusion that we have, in the Western world, in particular in the United States, that, oh, there's nobody here. And then you're stepping over, people and tribes and saying, as the comedian Eddie Izzard says, excuse me, who are you? There's nobody here, like, no, there's going to be people there, because this is the promised land, but we're going to have to work together. So that step 2 is we begin to come back to, oh, okay, there is a path forward here. It's not hopelessly lost. We don't get to just throw up our hands and say, there's there's nothing to this, but we're going to have to admit that we have some work to do, and that there's some knowledge and some wisdom that we have to attain. We have to learn about ourselves. And one of the things that I often share, particularly with folks that look like me, is I say, you know, when we could do this work, you get yourself back too. You know, it's not just about making things better for people of African descent or minorities or people of color, or what we sometimes call in CSL, we call people of the global majority, because they are the global majority, right? It's not just making conditions and systems and structures better for them. It's for me, for people like me, it's about me getting myself back. I'm not white. I'm Scottish and German and Irish and, you know, English, and I've got a family history chart up on my wall over here. I got a deep, rich history. I went back to Scotland this last year, got my kilt, and, you know, got my whole thing, right? Like, I get to claim that part of me back, because that's the part that my family gave up when they came here and started buying into the lie of whiteness, you know, generations ago, and started calling themselves white. My grandmother used to tell my mother, you know, we say, well, what are we? And she would say, a little bit of everything and a whole lot of nothing. And that's all. That's about what my grandmother knew about her ancestry. And her ancestry is rich and deep, and has such wonderful cultures and places and things that I've been exploring, you know, online and finding out things about. And so we get to get ourselves back too, and claim an identity that is not a washed down, washed out, generic thing that strips us of our humanity.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. I see some more people on. I'm going to call on Bishop Flunder to respond. But Bishop Bonnie Radden is on. Good evening to you, Ebony, from California. Sorry, from Las Vegas. Ebony Strong is on from Rosedale, Maryland. And I see more people. Hold on one second. I want to make sure I say their name. Victoria Burson is here from Maryland. Glad that you all are on. Ursula McClure is here from California. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining in. Chella Belcher is watching as well. Thank you from Connecticut. Reverend Bernie is watching from Mount Vernon. Chris Watson is watching from New York City. Welcome. Deacon Valerie Moore is watching. I think I said it already. Pastor Bree Taylor is watching. God bless you, Pastor Bree from Florida. Bishop Flunder, I want to give you the opportunity to respond. And Bishop Bonnie is saying that they did Dr. David's book at Refiner's Fire. So, you know, the thing about it is a workbook. Let me just say that. Let me announce the book again. Pastor Sue will put it up. Recovery from the Lie of Whiteness, Becoming Aware. And we're going to do a giveaway tonight. So make sure that you put hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers. There's going to be a free book giveaway. Make sure you type the hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers so that you can win a copy of the book. But it's probably something that you want to do with your congregation as well. Also, I see Raymond Anderson here from Delaware. God bless you, Raymond. Bishop Flunder.
So I've thought of this often as the burden of superiority, because it is a burden. It's a burden because it's a farce. It's a burden because we're made to believe that superiority is necessary, and religion is full of it. We talk sometimes about the churches in the inner city in the United States, in certain parts of the big cities where there are storefront churches. And those storefront churches can have a thin wall between them. So you can have a Baptist and a Holiness and some kind of Catholic and some kind of African Indigenous, and 8 or 9 of them on one block, with the walls so thin, they actually can hear one another. I've been in those experiences. You can hear the toilets flushing. You can hear the music of the church right next to you. You're pinned together on one street in Chicago, South Side, and you can't stand each other. You come out of the church and you see the people and almost pity them because they're going to hell. Of course, And of course, you're not. And there's something about it, and something that I've shared before, Dr. David, in conversation about the evolution of animals and the ways in which certain of our kindred, with whom we are only maybe 5% different in our DNA, like chimpanzees and bonobos. And everybody knows the chimpanzees. Everybody knows what a chimpanzee is, but not many people know that a chimpanzee's first cousin is a bonobo. He looks a lot like a chimpanzee, not quite as big, but the thing that they really are not quite as is they're not violent. The believers that have to do with making the decisions about the history of animals and the ways in which they came to be who they are, including us, Homo sapiens sapiens, is the idea that perhaps a large river grew between them and they could not get or stay with one another. The bonobos, they became a certain way over time, and the chimpanzees another way. The chimpanzees much more violent. And here's the funny part. Okay, so I would say those folks that are listening, don't go tell nobody. But if I tell it, I know you're going to tell somebody else. So let me just say it, that the chimpanzees became much more violent. The bonobos, when they got riled up, what they would do is they would hug one another. You all do your own research. They would hug one another and sometimes become intimate in that moment with the bonobo that was upset with them. Essentially, they found freedom from violence in the presence of tenderness and love. Born from the same seed, came from the same DNA, but they were not given to continue to fight and kill. And every time I read about them, because it's good preaching fodder to all the preachers that are listening right now, there's a fork in the road and there's a choice that can be made. Right. We can absolutely, as humankind, decide that this foolishness is going to stop.
Right.
That we're just not going to keep doing this. We're not going to continue. They're eating the cats. They're eating, my lips are not small enough.
Such foolishness.
The dogs.
Foolishness.
And then the people are reading this discourse on 2025, trying to find ways now to dismiss with all of the bonobos, if you understand what I'm saying, so that the chimpanzees can rule because they think they have to. But there is another way to be powerful. And that is what this book is seeking to teach us. There is another way to be powerful in a way such that everyone succeeds and everyone is important and everyone, though a different place, has a place.
Bishop Flunder, I'm glad you said this. I'm telling you, this whole story around the chimpanzees and the bonobos, but just the book itself, that story leads us to that book. Like, if we could get together with a group of people, right? Because there's still work to do. People want to know what we can do. What can we do? We can start having conversations and get groups, and you can get this book for your church. Right. You know what I'm saying? You can get this book for your denomination. You know, UCC people, if you're on here, you know, your conference people, and you know, it's a suggestion. We know we all congregationalists, but still, you know, your association, start having conversations like about this. This is important work. If we talk about it, we only got a couple of months to go. But if we start having these conversations amongst one another, maybe we could start at least treating each other with respect. Like, we don't even treat each other with respect. Like the way people are being denigrated. It's I'm flabbergasted by some of the things that I hear people say. They're not saying them to me, but to hear them say to other people, what people have the audacity to be posting on social media, the amplification of racist folks is okay. I'm gonna go ahead, Reverend Dr. D.
Yeah,
But you're right, though.
yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. I mean, there's so many things. I hope we get to talk about accountability at some point, because I think that's
Let's
a
go to it.
huge
Let's
piece.
go.
Yeah, and what I want to say about getting together is what doing this kind of work does is it allows us to say, okay, again, whiteness is it's the construct, it's the mental thing that has been in the atmosphere of our collective consciousness and society and the world in terms of superiority and power over dynamics for forever. And we have a frontal cortex, right? We have a evolved consciousness in mind, and we can choose differently, and we can begin to examine the ways that our thinking has been colonized, programmed, whatever metaphor or language you want to use around that, but ways in which it has been ingrained in us, unbeknownst to us, simply because of the culture or the background that we have been raised in. Much like Bishop was saying about if you grew up a particular religion, and you disliked the guys down the street or next door, just because that's what they told you to do, and it turns out y'all reading from the same book and singing the same songs, but maybe to a different beat or whatever, right? So this work allows us to examine our consciousness, the internal thoughts, whether we put them there or not, and just look at them and say, well, how did that get there? And is that really working for me? And is that producing the kind of life that I want to contribute to, and the kind of life that we say that we want to contribute to? That's the power, the liberating power of any 12-step program, as you get to examine choices and behaviors and simply identify them as that, choices and behaviors. And now now that I know better, I get to make new choices and behaviors. And the last thing I'll say about that, just in terms of the construct of the book, is the other thing that I found valuable for me, because 5 years ago or so, everybody was reading whatever the latest book was out. Everybody was reading, how to be anti-racist. Everybody was reading Caste. Everybody was reading Let's Talk About Race. Everybody was reading, all these tremendous, there's been an explosion of really great literature out there, and they're all fabulous. But I began to think to myself, well, it's got to be more than just I've got the latest book on my bookshelf, or even that I've read it. Because I don't know about you, but I got a lot of them on my shelf that I've purchased and they're yet to read, but they're there. The intention is there, and it's got to be more than that. And I realized that it wasn't about the kind of the value positioning of I'm a good person because I bought that book, or I went to that study group, or whatever. I go to this church and they preach about this or whatever. There had to be a deeper commitment to this examining. And that's where the 12-step model really showed value to me, because I said, oh, as a white identified person, it's going to be one day at a time, one step at a time, for the rest of my life. I mean, and you know me, and my family. My wife is from Zambia. I got Black children. I'm in it. And still, there are things that will come out of this mouth, come from somewhere buried in this head, from God knows where. That something's on the news, and I will respond or react to it, and my wife will look at me, right, and she'll say, "You said what?"
She better. You tell her I said she better.
She absolutely does, right? And I say that to say it's a constant examination, and so that's not a shame thing, that's not a blame thing, that's a I don't know what being raised in this stew has done to the collective consciousness that I've adopted as I've grown up. And so I have to constantly examine it and just be willing and have the courage And 12-step allows you to have a group, safe place to talk and say, let's just look at it. Let's just examine it. Let's know that there's a power that can restore us to sanity. We can make a fearless moral inventory of our thoughts and behaviors and all of those things, and begin to go through them. So that's the beauty of this particular modality, I think.
I would like to end, if I could, with this accountability piece.
Yeah.
I think that's a great place to end us tonight.
There's a couple blog entries on the website, Live Whiteness. I haven't posted blogs there very often, and I need to get back to it because there's a lot of stuff happening in the election cycle. But one of the common themes in the ones that are there, it's one of the traits, the characteristics of how do we know that, the lie of whiteness is running rampant and perpetuating, its lie in our society. And one of the common characteristics of it is that whiteness hates accountability. Or we could say, as we've elevated the conversation tonight, superiority, right? The power over dynamic, wherever it belongs, right? If you think you're part of the right religion, then that group hates accountability, right? If another religion comes around and says, well, actually, we hate that, right? So, but whiteness in particular, whiteness really hates accountability. It just got a bad relationship with it, and you see that in, the GOP and in the presidential, in our former president, in his behavior all of the time, and you see it here in Georgia when. A couple of years ago, after the last election, Governor Kemp put in the Voter Accountability Act. It's called the Voter Accountability Act. So they used the word accountability. And in his language, and I have a picture of it in one of the blog posts, is why I thought of it. He's there at the desk signing it. He's surrounded by all white men. He's at this big, long, powerful desk, and the picture that's hanging on the wall behind him is of a plantation, a Georgia plantation. I mean, the imagery could not be, if that was a mistake, it was a really dumb one. If that was just like, well, let's sit down here and sign this, and that was the picture they put out. But I don't think it was a mistake, but that's discussion perhaps for another day. But the language that he used, the reason when the press pressed on him and said, well, why these things are in place, and he said, in a direct quote, I didn't like the outcome of the election here in Georgia, because there was no evidence that voter suppression took, or that that ballots were mishandled, or that any kind of election integrity, that there was a lack of integrity in any way, and that there was therefore a need for any of these laws to be put in place. There was no evidence. There was simply the top political leader of the state did not like the outcome, so we must do something, right? And so it's things like that where when you try to hold them to account, you get tremendous pushback, and that's what we're seeing. And what I most fear about what's happening right now is that they're doubling down on this superiority thing and the castigating of the other in of the Haitian community in Springfield. And JD Vance just said the other night, did you hear him when he said, 27,000 people that have come in, and he said from Haiti, Haitians from Haiti.
I heard him. I was like, what's happening here?
That's that's whiteness for you, right? I don't even have to be educated about what I'm spewing out of my mouth. It's not even necessary for me to have credibility, right?
And it's coming from both sides. And I say that cautiously, but that's what makes it different this time.
Talk about
because all of that vitriol came really from one side. In when Donald was running the first time, and when Donald lost the second time. Mm-hmm. But the thing that really concerns me, to your point, Dr. David, is that there are a whole lot of people getting ready to say, well, now, if you come for us this time, don't try to do it this time.
Yeah.
Because if you come this time, you're going to meet what it is that you brought with what it is that we didn't bring the last time, because we didn't think that anybody could be that evil. It is a huge mistake to think that the only people that can go and make a street fight, because their person didn't win, that the only people that can do that would be Donald's people. See, the two people that came packing allegedly for him were not from the communities that any of us represent.
That's correct.
To include you, Dr. David. These were not, and everybody said the same day, Lord, don't let it be somebody Black, and Lord, don't let it be somebody gay.
Right. And it was not.
It was not.
It was not.
And I was just saying to myself, oh my God, Jesus. If this, and one of the reasons that there's such a conundrum is because it's like, this is your camp. These people identify
people
as people from the same party
100%
that you come from.
Well, there's a dissension. 100 Republicans have said that they will not vote for Donald Trump. They will be voting for Kamala Harris. They said that he cannot lead this nation. Like,
see, when you bring stuff, you put people in a position to have to also bring stuff. Folks got knocked off, Bishop Vanessa.
Yes.
Because they didn't think anyone could be that wicked.
That's right.
And now that they've experienced it, they will say, well, you're not the only one that can. And that, to me, is why this book and books like this are so important in this time. This kind of vitriol and anarchy cannot be a way of life for us.
No, it cannot.
Because
what happened on January 6th can never happen again. And that's why we need this book. That's why we need for people to, call in Reverend Dr. David to lead your session. You got to make them in, but call them in. Call them people.
Let's not make this a lifestyle. Get the book and let's. There's a sermon that I was that I'm working on right now, you all. That's called "My Joy Is My Strength." My joy is my strength. And what I have got to do is not allow all this vitriolic stuff in my atmosphere to become a lifestyle for me.
That's right.
Then the enemy has won. Get the book, beloved. Let's see if we can find the power of peace and love and connection and the common denominators that weave us together as a people, that have woven us, the three of us that are talking tonight, along with the many of you who are listening to us. We are woven together by love. We found our common denominator. Our religions didn't even like each other. It's the truth, but we are woven together.
Right. That's right.
By patchwork, a powerful quilt of love. We can do that. And please do not let this time make you hideously angry.
Right.
Because then we all lose. And it's my hope, Bishop Vanessa is right. We have to pay attention to what people are trying to make of us too. That's an important thing.
Dr. Dave?
Yeah, I think, what I see, what I was starting to say there is what I'm concerned about is what I see on the right is that they don't have a strategy to win. This doubling down on the vitriol and the hate and all of that, because when that happened, I thought, well, that's not a winning strategy, casting out a group of people like that. That's not, and it was like a light bulb went off. I said, oh, well, actually, they don't intend on winning. They don't have that's gone. That is out the window. I guarantee you that behind closed doors, they're like, we don't have a path to victory here. The only play that we've got left is a path to chaos. and the path to chaos is to rattle this thing up as much as we can, get as many groups fighting against each other and vitriol and all of that as much as we can. And so, to your point, Bishop, we cannot play into that. And I'm reading another book right now called Belonging Without Othering by James Powell, a powerful man out in California, Othering and Belonging Institute. And he says, demagoguery, we cannot fight demagoguery by yelling about it and saying how wrong they are and all of that, even though that may be true. The only way to battle that is to tell a better story. The only way is to tell a better story about who we are. And so that's what we've got to do. We've got to have that joy as our strength, tell a better story. And that better story, that's kind of the liberation that this work is intended to bring out, is that, you may have unconscious, things that are in you baked, because it's baked into all of us, but you can be liberated of those things. You can have your whole self back, and you can contribute to a better story of humanity. But it's going to take work, one step at a time, one day at a time.
I love that. I want to ask Bishop Flunder to give us a final remark, if she would. And before she does that, though, I'm going to ask Pastor Sue to put up the name of the book again. I want to make sure you get an opportunity to win a 12-step workbook, Recovery from the Lie of Whiteness, Becoming Aware. And we want you to put down hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers for this free book giveaway. We want to make sure that you're in it. If this book is not for me, well, okay, send it to somebody that it is for. Mm-hmm. Somebody that could do the work. I can't do it. We'll send it to somebody that could buy the book and gift it to someone. Okay? Thank you so much. Bishop Flunder?
Let me close with this. For the children's sake, all of us that are talking to you, our faces right now, we have children. And for the children's sake, the children have been given guns by their parents. And they've gone to school and they've shot other children because they were in a house where they were listening and feeling that doing those things was the thing to do. For the children's sake, for the generations that are coming after us, let's be the generation that makes peace run down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. If you don't want the book, you probably need the book. I encourage you. If you think it's not for you, the probability is that is what you need to read. For peace sake, our God has called us to such a time as this. God bless.
Reverend Dr. David, you have any last words for the people?
I want to say this, and I was going to save it for kind of our green room afterwards, but I'll say it publicly. As I said in the beginning, my heart hurt not being with you all in Vegas. Ministry has been difficult the last several months, maybe longer. Everything is the last several months now, for the last 5 years. But it's been a challenge building community, keeping community going, keeping enough funds going, all of those things. And I'm not playing for sympathy here, but it's been a challenge. And tonight, and your affirmation and participation in this has put wind in my sails in a way that I really needed. So I thank you. It's been a great honor to contribute to the conversation and to just be in the room with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We love you. And we want to let the folks know we have one announcement. While you are putting your hashtag in Beyond the Gatekeepers and getting your name in, we're going to ask Bishop Flunder to give this announcement tonight.
God bless you, beloved. I believe that where our treasure is, that is where our hearts are. And I want to encourage you. If you want to see the Gatekeepers continue to grow and expand on all of the different social media platforms where we are, it will be a great help, a great help to give, to support the broadcast by giving a donation. And you can do that via Cash App to $TFAM Annual or through PayPal. www.paypal.me/TFAMJustice. I know you're blessed. And since you have been blessed, take a moment and be a blessing. God bless you is my prayer. Bye-bye.
We got to save the date for our holy convocation. We want you to meet us in Atlanta, Georgia, June 30th through July 6, 2025. We want you to save the date. We are looking forward to coming to Atlanta, Georgia. We will be celebrating 25 years of the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries. How about that? 25 years. So our presiding prelate, Bishop Flunder, is inviting you to be in Atlanta with us. Put it on your calendar. However you save your dates, stay tuned for hotel and registration information. Our theme, again, is Something Inside So Strong, and we are excited about what we are preparing to do. All right. We've got folks who have put that hashtag in. We are excited. Really quickly, let me shout out Bishop Sonia Williams, who is on here tonight. Pastor Hulan Mike Williams is here tonight. Thank you for joining us. Eliza Lewis is with us tonight. I see you all. Pastor Valerie Oliver, thank you. Q Washington, Dr. Danny Bahuro, Pastor Elizabeth Ann Jefferson, Valvia P. Galloway Jefferson. I love it. Thank you all very, very much for being a part of this conversation on tonight. And do us a favor and share it later on when you get the chance. So you're putting in hashtag Beyond the Gatekeepers. We're going to let Pastor Sue go on and spin it around. Well, James Thomas Pierman, you are the winner. You are the winner. God bless you. We appreciate you so much, Deacon James. You are a blessing to City of Refuge, to our bishop, and to the fellowship. And so we're glad that you won. And we'll make sure that you get a copy of that book. We say congratulations to you.
Man, I love that.
Yeah,
and
that's
take
great.
it down to the deep south, brother. Take it to the deep south.
Right here in Kentucky.
Oh, here in Kentucky.
Here in Kentucky, where they had a manhunt for someone who was shooting up people, but they caught him tonight. They caught him.
Oh, wow.
Just
caught him tonight. Get on the street corner, James, and preach.
Listen, come over here. Tell them they got to get recovered.
Just up the road in Kentucky.
See? Exactly. Thank you so much, you all, for being here with us tonight. We say God bless you and have a wonderful evening.